Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what time zone that you are in. Thanks so much for joining another episode of Visual Studio Code live stream. I want to say hello to some of the people that are here. Today's a special day. I am self-producing. Our producer is out, so if there's any glitches that happen, you guys have been forewarned. It's going to be exciting, all right? Hello there from, all right, I don't read Chinese, so hello, hello there from Korea. And Mr. Nurse Ratchet, good morning. Thanks for joining. This is going to be fun, all right? We have an exciting guest, but before I bring him up, today, as you know, is Thursday. So I want to go ahead and play our segment, which is our Throwback TikTok Thursday. Our producer usually does this really quick. I want to make sure I see the video here so we could bring this up. Let's see here. I should just share the screen with you guys so you see how live stream backstage. All right. We are looking for, that's our lightning round intro. You know what? I might have to show this a little bit later on because I'm not seeing the, here it is. All right. Ready?
When is 16 minus 6 actually 8? When it's JavaScript, of course. When you start an int with 0, JavaScript treats it as an octal number. So 16 base 8 is equal to 14 base 10, so 14 minus 6 does equal 8. Now, this logically makes sense. It just might be a bit of a gotcha if you're used to other languages like C#, which does not recognize octal literals, so you get the answer 10, or Python, which will straight up give you a syntax error.
Yeah, that was nice. I love these fun facts when it comes to coding. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and bring up our guest, Daniel Rosenwasser. I hope I'm not butchering your name. Let us bring you up right now. I think you're muted, Daniel. Is that on your end, or do I need to unmute you? Let me go ahead and unmute you. I think that's on your end. Are you able to unmute yourself? All right, there we go. Technical issues. He dropped out. What if he just got upset? He was just like, how dare you mute me? I've been canceled by vscode. He'll join us back soon. In the meanwhile, MK Force, thanks for joining. You joined a special edition where we're self-producing and we're handling some technical issues right now, but this is going to be fun. Nothing to be scared about. Thanks for joining. Thank you from UA. All right, here's Daniel again. Take 2. As they do in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Daniel, all right, we've got sound.
All right, are we back? Because I think I got punted off for some reason. I don't know.
I thought you kicked yourself off because I was saying I couldn't hear you, and I thought
Get
you got
out of here.
offended, and you were like, you know what? I don't have time for this. I got things to do, people to see.
No, absolutely not. I think as everything, it's always the computer's fault, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Nice. All right, Daniel, what are you going to talk to us about today? What are you going to demo?
So today I'm here to talk about something called TypeChat. You know, for the most part, I've been working on TypeScript for the better part of almost 10 years now, which is nuts to me. But you know, as we've seen more and more and more interest in AI and large language models and things like that, we've been trying to understand some of the ways that we can better make these things work with our day-to-day tools, our day-to-day languages, things like that. And so, I mean, maybe the best way to get an explanation of what we've been working on is to sort of, well, I mean, show it in different ways, right? So first off, I mean, let me just present my screen. Give me a quick second. And so basically, I think you can see this is actually our announcement blog post, and it kind of gives a rough idea of what we've been trying to work on instead of just doing slides. So we've got these large language models. We've got these like very powerful things from like OpenAI, from all these other companies as well, of trying to train on these massive data sets. And now we have something extremely useful that kind of mimics like an actual conversation view. And there's a question of, could we take that view and turn it into something our applications can actually use? And so the thing that you might try to do is you need some sort of structure, right? You need something that you can actually parse out, because a lot of the time you need to kind of bounce between, give me a list of these things, and then you say, okay, but now I need to actually parse it out. So the first thing a lot of people try to say is, give me JSON, right? Come back with just JSON. And it should look like this.
So a couple of things real quick.
Yeah.
Can you zoom in your screen a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
And everyone in the chat, if you want anything to be zoomed in more, just let us know, just so I can make sure that you guys can see.
Just interrupt me.
And so the other thing is, so this is, are you showing us a sample of TypeChat right now?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to build up. I'm building up to it.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Jumping ahead.
Sorry about that. No.
What is it? Oh, the suspense.
I know. I take a while to get around to this stuff. Okay, so I'll shorten it. You might say, hey, give me some JSON. But the problem, and that generally works, right? These bots are really good at giving you back JSON when you say, give me JSON. The problem is, if you don't have a full description of all the different things that your JSON can have, then the bot doesn't know what you expect. And if you don't know, if you're getting stuff that's just random or missing or whatever, your apps can't build on that stuff. And so the thing that we realize is you can just add types. If you need a way to describe all the things that your app can do, all the things that you accept, you need to know if it's optional, the type, how many of these properties you have and stuff like that. And types actually have all that information. The types that we use in things like TypeScript and other languages too, actually. But what we found is TypeScript works really well because if you're looking to get JSON, JSON is just a subset of JavaScript values. TypeScript's really good at describing and shaping those up. And so you can actually say, give me this stuff. Here are the types that I'm expecting. And it comes back with JSON. And it's not enough just to be able to say, here's what I expect you to give me back. You also want to be able to say, I want to actually check that what you're giving me back is correct. And so TypeChat is a library that does all of that. It says, you give us some types, we'll validate the types, and we'll guide the language models to give you those things. And what you get is strongly typed data that comes back over the wire. It's just JSON, but you have guarantees over the sort of shape you have based on your description, based on your types. And so all you have to do is, npm install TypeChat, right? That's it.
Okay.
So I don't know. I'll pause any questions on that one, but before I dive into
don't have any questions related to TypeChats yet. We have like unrelated questions. Is AI technology taking over their job from humans? All right, that's unrelated. Let's focus, folks.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a harder question that I want to answer on a live stream today. So
yeah, let's go ahead and continue. I'm sure they'll have like more questions as we go along.
Yeah. So I think a good way to think about this is actually just to show you what we've got going on. So if you go
By
to
the
the
way,
type, yeah,
Daniel, here's a quick question. What is NPM? I'll let you explain. One of our people in the chat is
sure.
asking. Ed.
Yeah, I'm jumping ahead a little bit because I've been in this stuff for a while. So if you're in the JavaScript ecosystem, npm is like the de facto sort of package manager, right? The thing that gets you libraries on your system, right? So there's a whole ecosystem of different, libraries that people have already written for you. A lot of them are like front-end frameworks. A lot of them are back-end libraries, and you can just install them over npm. So if you're familiar with like pip or NuGet or I think Maven and other sort of, and I guess Cargo VC package, I'm not gonna get too carried away, but the whole idea is these are good ways of getting like libraries on your system, and TypeChat is currently right now a JavaScript and TypeScript library. So if you are comfortable with TypeScript and JavaScript, you can just get that going today.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, like someone else mentioned also, just the acronym itself, Node Package Manager. But hopefully that answers your question, Ed.
Yeah, technically they say it doesn't stand for Node Package Manager, but we know.
Really? What's the other version?
Oh, it doesn't stand for anything, is what they say.
Really? It's just like a word without vowels, like.
Go. I mean, because we all know it kind of originally stood for Node Package Manager, but they can't. I think the whole idea is Node actually has other package managers. If you really want, you have Yarn, you have PNPM, you have all this other stuff. I'm getting distracted. You're all good at distracting me. Okay. So actually, before we go into that, the TypeChat repo is all open source. This is our library. This is where our docs are. And you can actually use it to just explore examples. But the easiest way to actually get a sense of TypeChat is to like clone it, try it out. I am sharing the wrong vscode window. Okay, great. So in the exam, all you have to do is go into the examples folder. You also need a .n file, and the .n file will have all the secrets that you need for like contacting OpenAI or Azure OpenAI. TypeChat works on any language model, but we've just set things up automatically for like OpenAI and Azure OpenAI just because they're the easiest to get started with, and also kind of have shown off like the best of breed of language models right now. But let's just dive into that. I'm going to go into the coffee shop example, right? And so I'm going to I think TS Node is a good way to run this. And so what we end up with is a prompt with a little coffee emoji. And basically, this coffee shop app is supposed to show off what it would be like to use an intelligent agent or like one of these AI services to come back with a response based on like an order, like a coffee order, right? So I could say 1 tall latte, please. And what it comes back with is JSON. Maybe this is a good view, is like the side-by-side. So 1 tall latte, please, and comes back with JSON. Comes back with JSON, we've got this object, some items, and the only item that we have is this, latte drink. You can see it's got a size of tall and all that stuff. But where is this coming from? So what we've actually done is we've defined this entire file, this plain TypeScript file, which is just types, interfaces, aliases, all this other stuff. And so we define this thing called a cart, and a cart has line items, or, well, we'll get to that. And each line item is a product, and a product is something from the bakery. It's a latte, it's a specialty espresso drink, or it's a plain brew, drip coffee. And what we basically do here is, like, these are all plain TypeScript types, right? This just says this object has to have this string as its value. This thing can be any of these 4 strings. And then we have a set of options that we can modify and whatnot. So, I can order 1 cappuccino grande, and let's see how that comes out. If we have a grande drink, we could say like we want a sweetener. What's a sweetener here? With Splenda, I guess. 1 cappuccino with Splenda. Right. And so it's able to adapt to our user intents, our queries, all of these things, based purely on the types that we've written. So this is kind of the nice part, is if you've spent any time with language models, you end up having to do a very specific description over what you're expecting, over all these different things. But when you have an app, you already have to do that description, and that's called defining the types. And so all of these types are actually sent over the wire to the language model to make this all come back. So I don't know. Are there any questions before I kind of dive in a little deeper on this?
I have a question, but I want to make sure that anyone else has a question first. This one's a little unclear whether or not it's related to what you were talking about. Najis Binayams asks, what is the difference between custom modification data and integration API?
I don't know. I don't know what either of those things are.
So like the reason I brought this up, because the question that I was going to ask was whether or not that what you're showing us is something that's mainly going to be used with like a custom application that wants to use AI. Is this like some type of an interface? And that's why I was like wondering if that last question was somewhat related to it, because you mentioned integration, like an interface, an integration API. Is this used somewhat of like an interface for like an app that I built, and then I don't want to have to like directly use like the API of
This is a great question. Yeah, because what you really want is there's this idea of like you have a chat bot or something like that. The primary interface there is just chatting with an agent and whatnot. The place we came from is, yes, you do want some of these chat interfaces, but you often want to add or create a new sort of way into an existing app. Where like let's say you're doing a coffee shop ordering app, right? And you go into one of these restaurants and you can actually just like order it on the kiosk, right? And you can like click all the buttons and it's all there, right? You can do that manually. There's a question of, can you make it easier, right? Like and maybe more accessible too, right? Like if you want to use a voice interface instead of like clicking out each of these buttons, you just want to say 1 tall latte, you don't have to kind of go through each of the menus and do all that stuff. And there's trade-offs, right? Everyone's going to have different desires and opinions and how they want to use the thing. But you're giving people another choice to maybe get things done a little bit faster, right?
Got it.
Okay. And so this is additive. It doesn't replace the interfaces that we've got today. It just adds natural language understanding to your app in a way that you can still process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's another question that came up here. Can the LLM ask clarifying questions if needed to produce a good final result value?
So there's not really right now a concept of asking for more clarity. You can basically we do have a repair prompt, right? So if the language model has failed in some way, right? So at some point these things need to come back. Actually, let me show you a place where this like consistently fails right now under certain models, right? So if I say 1 croissant, please. Notice that we don't have croissants anywhere in the bakery product. right? We
Okay.
have Apple brand muffins, blueberry muffins, bagels, whatever, right? And so like typically it will get confused and it will either try to give us back a bagel when I ask for a croissant, or it'll have something that like doesn't fit the description, right? So it comes back with
Because
some
it's not a way of like catching that condition and like showing like a different, essentially like an exception.
Well, yeah, right now, the way that it internally repairs is it's actually using, so I don't know if you can see this, but this actually comes from the TypeScript compiler, right? This type error right here. So when I said that we can use the types to guide the language model, that's just us sending some text over the wire. And then when we say we validate it, we're actually constructing some TypeScript program to actually do this check and make sure that this thing aligns with the types that you've asked for. So basically, it's coming back with unknown, and it really doesn't work. Now, if I switch to GPT-4, this example always works out, right? Right now, I'm using GPT-3.5 Turbo. There's a lot of subtlety on the different models that you can choose, you can pick from, and things like that. But yeah, so we're working on different things like how to repair better and things along those lines too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So another question that popped up was if you're able to go over, this is by Casey Martell. And thanks, no good Nix for your last question. But Casey Martell asked, please cover the LLM connection config.
Sure. Let me really quickly show you. Where did we talk about .env here? Okay. So we have some stuff that by default, if you just specify this in a .env file, it all just works. When you use this function that we export called create model, right? So if you're not familiar with .env, it is a file that you put in your repository. You're supposed to keep it ignored so that you don't share any secrets for services that you use. And then what we do is we load these up. So like a model, an API key is all you need if you're just using OpenAI. An endpoint and an API key are all you need if you're using Azure OpenAI. And you can just use these and it works. However, like I said, what did I say? You can use any model with TypeChat, right? And so actually, let me show you a little bit of like the coffee shop just to give you a sense of that too. So the coffee shop is like actually only 37 lines of code. The thing that we're using to actually create the model is this function that we export called create language model. But if you go to the type definition of this thing, it's just an object with a function that completes some text, right? So all you have is this thing that takes a prompt, like a string. So that's like the user request that we're saying. For example, every time I write 1 cappuccino with Splenda, I don't know why I ordered that. I mean, it's not bad order, but anyway, that goes into this function. And what you get is eventually some sort of result, which is a string, right? So it's either a success or a failure. And if it's a success, you get a string out of this thing. All that means is you need a function that takes a string and returns a string. And if you have that, you can connect any model. So you need some environment variables. You need to run that create language model function. And then you basically do some setup here, which I can get into in a little bit too. But that's it. That's all you really need.
So that answers another question that just popped up, which you kind of already answered before. Can it support other language models different than ChatGPT?
Yeah. So the thing is that this whole model, it's all about taking natural language and turning it into JSON or some sort of structured output language. And that means is you need to have a model that has been trained sufficiently on both prose, meaning like any standard text, the things that you read in an article or whatever, alongside code, right? So Python code, TypeScript code, like C# code, Java code, whatever, Go. And the more it's been trained on all of those things, the better it tends to do. So you might be able to get away decently with something like Llama, but I know that there's like a Code Llama model out there that you can use as well that might be a little bit better on these sorts of examples. So yes, like I said, as long as you have a function to just say like, give me a string, I'll give you a string back. You just plug that in, you define something that implements this type, and you're good to go. You can plug this in with any model that you want, right? Anthropic, Cohere, like all these services that have language models you can use as well. So local or remote.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's one thing I wanted to mention. I also wanted to talk a little bit about this unknown text thing, right? So, I showed you an example where it fails pretty hard. Sorry, I'm scrolling so fast. In this case, you get a bakery product and it says unknown. It's getting a little bit confused. But I said like 1 tall latte and a medium gorilla. So the whole, one of the key things here is that because you're just taking some user intent and turning it into some JSON objects, you can do whatever you need to like display this to a user and say, is this, this is what I got. Does that sound right? Right. You can basically encode degrees of certainty and uncertainty. And so at the top level, we added this unknown text thing here, which means that anytime that this thing is not able to like put something in a bucket, right? Say it's a line item, it's a bakery product, it's a latte. That's just garbled stuff. And it says, all right, well, let me put that into this unknown text thing. And this is your out. This is basically how you can encode like, I don't know how this is going to work, stuff along those lines. So if you don't have that, right, like if I actually delete this, let's try this again. I don't know what will happen actually. Yeah, let's just do the same one. The thing is, I must not have saved or something like that.
What's it not doing that you were expecting?
Probably I have to rebuild or something like that. Even though I'm using PSO, a demo can never.
That's what makes live demos so exciting.
This is what makes live demos so exciting. If you take out the unknowns, then we need to basically get rid of this stuff.
Can you explain what
TypeScript is actually catching an error that I was making, because this will never be true. Neither of these conditions will ever be true. 1 tall latte and a medium gorilla. Okay. The thing is, when you take away the ability for the language model to have these degrees of uncertainty, it really tries hard to come up with more garbage is the problem, right? Like garbage in, garbage out, right? So you need to be able to be resilient to that. So yeah, we got a tall latte, but we also got a medium or a grande coffee, which I don't know. It just sort of, it tries really hard to do something useful, even though it's not. So that's one of the little cute patterns we found is you actually do want to encode this uncertainty throughout your schema, right? And the more you're able to handle this stuff, right, you could say, yeah, we have bakery items, but we also have bakery items that we can't recognize. Then this becomes a little bit easier for your users to like get through when these language models can understand. Now, the other thing is if you just use a more powerful language model, it tends to do better overall and not like hallucinate stuff. But there's a trade-off between like cost and power that you're kind of getting with these things.
So essentially, when you're adding like some parameters in there, is it sending it to the language model, in your case, you said you're using ChatGPT 3.
Yeah, so we're using.
So is it sending it there, and then ChatGPT is returning the responses, and you're forming it into a JSON response?
Yeah, literally what I mean. Let's try this out on the fly because I think I can do this. Let's. How should I do this?
But that's what's going on, right? I just want to
let's not get into this. What's that?
No, I just wanted to like clarify if that's what's going on. When you're adding in parameters, it sends it using to a language model like ChatGPT, and then the response that you get, you're forming that in a JSON format, and that's what we're seeing as a result. Is that correct? Or am I missing something?
Yeah. I mean, we're basically taking this whole file. The actual thing that we send over is we say, here's a description of a schema, and we copy this entire TypeScript file right now, right? It's very naive. I'm going to be honest with you. It's super naive right now.
Okay.
You tell us the type that you're interested in to match against. And then every single time you write something in here, we then say, okay, that was a schema. Here's a user intent. It's your job to satisfy the schema with a JSON object using this indentation format and this and this and this and that. So we actually have, at the end of the day, when you talk to these language models, you're actually just giving it a bunch of like text as an initial prompt. So there's like a degree of what's called prompt engineering. You have to actually say like, give me an answer that looks like this, and kind of feels a little ridiculous because we're used to very precise things with computers. But we take care of that. So all you generally have to worry about is the contents of this file, right? Just the schema. And then the language model just comes back with JSON or some text that we have to massage into JSON.
That conforms to the schema.
Exactly.
Right. Got it. Okay.
Right. It's a little hard to do it on the fly in a live stream.
No, that's why I want to like talk it through. Because we're mentioning like a lot of different things, so I kind of want to just like get an overall picture. So we're giving the language, we're passing in parameters that goes against the language model based on this schema, and then we get information back based on that schema. So let me ask you, what scenario that led you to create this? You or your team?
So I didn't create this. I worked hard on it and I contributed a lot. So I'm not going to take it that way for myself. But this basically came from two people here at Microsoft, Steve Luco and Anders Hausberg. They both worked on TypeScript before and a bunch of other stuff. And so my recollection is this came up with Steve talking to Anders at some point about, hey, I'm trying to get some of these devices to be a little bit smarter. I'm trying to get them to actually provide something that is, I want to talk to these language models, right? I want to be able to get like useful data based on a command that, can power up like a device, like a thermostat or like a home speaker or something like that. It feels like there should be an easier way to make these things happen. And people have done stuff with like skills and whatnot, and you can see in the AI space things like LangChain and semantic kernel and really similar efforts that are all about like trying to take natural language and turn them into some actions or nouns or intents or like script things. But we were looking they were looking for something that was simpler, and I think there was like an insight of, if you're looking for JSON, what if you just give it the types, right? And I think that it wasn't really isolated to like these devices. It was also something where we were starting to see like similar things from different products within Microsoft too. Like, we want to be able to get this stuff within Office. We want to get this stuff done within VS Code, and like these needs are becoming more and more clear, and they're all similar. And so, use the types are one of the insights. So, I think I see a question that just popped up. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah. Lasindu Nwanga asks, so do we have to define all the types, etc.? For example, in the case of all the coffee types.
Yeah. So right now, that's the way that this works for TypeChat, right? It's all based on like plain type definitions. But there are legitimate questions here of like, what are you going to do if your types live in, I don't know, a database, right? Like, you might not have putting your whole menu on here is a little bit weird, right? Especially if the menu can change day to day. You don't necessarily know if you have stock of certain things, right? So it's definitely an open question of like how we want to be able to support some of this stuff. Of like, what if you could generate this schema on the fly in some way from your database, and have that all work, right? Because the beauty is that the language model actually does really well with TypeScript types or like types from your language. It does okay with auto-generated stuff like JSON schema and whatever, or like you could just give a CSV based on your database or whatever. But these interfaces tend to go really well. So it's an active area of investigation. TypeChat is still kind of in an experimental stage where we're like trying to iterate here. So we're thinking about it, right? And as we think about other languages, we're also thinking about how to do it for, how you would thread that same sort of stuff through and dynamically generate this stuff too.
Nice. All right. Cool. What else? Is there more or?
Yeah, actually. So another thing that, what is it gonna say? One of the things that you can do with this is like, I'm showing you like coffee orders, right? We also have like another example of a calendar app, right? So you could say something like, here's a calendar app. You can add events, remove events, add participants. You have all these actions, right? So instead of like saying, I want a coffee that needs to be ordered, you're actually like getting an action that you want to perform, right? Sort of a subtle distinction. And so like, that's one degree away from like the thing that I'm about to show you, which is often you want to have multiple actions that kind of like thread through to each other in some way.
Okay.
Like you want to do one thing, get the input of that or the output of that and give it to the input of the next action, and then get the output of that and input it to the next action, right? And so you want to say like, get the events, find out the time, do this, do that, do this, do that, right? And so there was another thing that we were starting to hit is like people we were showing TypeChat to were saying, this is a very cool concept, but I need to be able to do some more like scripting, right? I want to be able to actually like script these things together. And so you want to be able to like take these steps and take the input of one from the output of the other, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and reuse the results. And so just like getting a plain object is not enough. Sometimes you often need to like construct something that can like take the flows of each of them. And so we had this question of like, what if you could take the same approach to scripting with TypeChat, right? What if you could say, hey, here's an API. Here's all the methods that are supported on an API, and find a way to connect each of these steps together in some way, right? So here's like a toy example of that, right? It's just a calculator, and the calculator can basically be given, let's get out of this directory. Let's go into the math example.
Lucindu, by the way, says this is great. It would be really hard to do this if this was done manually using if, else, and switches.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Lucinda, hit that like button if you're getting that value out of here.
The emoji do not play well with the terminal here. So, so the whole thing is, it's not node, it's npm run build. Here's a bunch of functions, and you can construct a program to do some of this stuff as well, right? So what I'm going to do now is say like add, do 1 + 1, right? And so what I actually am doing, what we actually do is we can actually get a program back. Not a real JavaScript program. It's actually something that is like sort of sandbox. It's like an intermediate form. Comes back as JSON. We take that program, we type check it. We actually create an actual TypeScript program to type check to make sure that all of the steps flow in from one another in a correct way. And then we can evaluate it as well. So this is kind of unimpressive because like 1 + 1 you could do in anything, right? Like, why are you asking an AI to do math? But it's really about like, all right, this is high level. Like, how would you translate these ideas into math, right? So like add 1 to 41 and then double it, right? So what it can do is it can create steps for each of these things. It can say like add 1 to 41. Okay, the next step is to double it, right? And then at each step, we will run whatever function gets called. So we'll say like add 1 and 41. Okay, multiply the result 42 and 2. And then this is what you get as your final output, right?
That's cool. So you could see the gradual steps it takes logically based on the question that you, based on the request that you passed in.
Yeah.
And a couple more questions are coming up. I don't want to sidetrack your train of thought. Casey says, is there handling for cases where the schema might exceed the context window? Are portions of the schema selectively sent?
So at the moment, no. That's another active area investigation is sub-schema selection, if you want to call it that, or that's like a fancy name. Basically, can you just throw away the stuff that doesn't matter for the user request is a big question, right? So we have like toy examples that we're playing around with right now where we actually can use TypeChat to decide which schema you want to pick out. So you can have like an intelligent agent that can like order coffee or work on your calendar, right? And it can decide which of the things to send over. But what we'd also like to be able to maybe do is say, okay, maybe which of these methods can you drop when you send this over? Which of these many types do you not care about? Like, especially if you've never talked about creamers or stuff like that. Doing so might require multiple, like at least one back and forth with an AI, right? One round trip. But if you have like constraints on the token window, you might need to do that and whatnot. So that's an area of investigation that we have for TypeChat right now.
Okay. Just a heads up, we're getting towards the tail end of the stream, so we have like about another 3 to 5 minutes, but I want to get these questions in, and then we'll move on to our lightning round. Is that cool?
Yeah. I can speed it up.
Mandar Badvi says, this is a great library. Question, does it work with NLU providers, or is there any future development around it?
I don't know what an NLU provider is, if I'm going to be honest with you. Maybe I've heard it in a different form, but this is one of the things that if you have a request, I encourage you to open it up on the TypeChat repo. Our issue tracker is open, and also there's a discussions area too. So just feel free to file an issue if you're interested in that.
Cool. And Mandar, drop down what you're referring to as NLU. What's the acronym? What else here? AI needs an external service to do basic math, and is kind of all right.
The math example is like again, this is an example to show you how you can construct these programs. We don't have enough time to dive into all of this stuff, but we do have, for example, and unfortunately I can't show you this. We have a music example, and the music example uses a Spotify API. So we call it Chatify, right? You have like play, print tracks, pause, next, previous. I would show you this, except one, sometimes my music is embarrassing. I don't want you to all hear it. But two, if we put it on the live stream, it might get taken down because of copyright stuff. Sorry.
Oh, no, we don't
So
want to do that.
it's like a great demo, but it's also like a terrible demo because it can't be recorded. So yeah.
All right, here's a good one. What do I do when the API schema is wrong? Can it tweak the calls based on my input to work around broken schemas?
It's tough, right? I mean, there's an old quote about how I think like when someone asked Charles Babbage, like, what happens if you put in the wrong numbers? Like, do you have anything to fix that? And all he said was like, I don't know, you get the wrong result. Just don't do that. But that's, I mean, that's crappy, right? I think you will need to be able to iterate and make sure that you're testing each of your endpoints. And so learning how to test with AI inputs and outputs is going to be, it's getting better, right? We're starting to see services that help with that. But I think it comes down to testing, and hopefully the types, when you use that in your in your actual code, you'll catch that earlier on. Oh, it's other vendors' endpoints. Yeah, I'm not totally sure how to. I mean, you can always copy and modify it in some way and patch them in some way. But yeah.
Okay, because he's looking for like a real case to actually like use this. But like he mentioned, like Daniel mentioned, you could communicate with like the team, and then hopefully they could like add future features that will address your needs.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So we're about that time. We could move on to our segment. Is there any last thing that you wanted to mention before we move on, Daniel?
Just that try out the examples that we've got, right? If you take a look at our examples, the sentiment example is kind of like our hello world. It'll show you how like to actually use the library, and it just tells you like, is a sentence happy, sad, or like neutral. Play around with the math example too, and also, if you're interested in any of this stuff, if you have like a real example and you just want to chat, I'd love to hear about what you're trying to build. I think your stream has some of my information in it already. Like, I'm Rosenwasser on Twitter, and I'd love to just hear from you and what you're trying to build, and see if TypeChat can help out with that.
Yeah, I see some of the links that we have here is your GitHub, right? You got your GitHub at Daniel Rosenwasser. Is Rosen?
You got it.
Okay, so I said it right. All right. I didn't know if Rosen was like your middle name and Wasser was your last name, or but it's just one word.
I've never heard that one before. Yeah.
Okay. And then we have your Twitter here. You guys can reach out to him on Twitter at twitter.com at D Rosenwasser.
Yep, you got it.
And then we also have our microsoft.github.io/TypeChat, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
So
thanks so much for having me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. You're not done yet. We're gonna moving on to our lightning round right now. So you ready for that?
Sure. I don't know what this is.
Here we go. Lightning rounds are very simple. I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You just answer right off the top of your head. Don't overthink it. All right? You ready?
Uh-oh. Okay, go for it.
First question. Biggest pet peeve?
Single quotes and strings. I don't know.
Single quotes. Okay. All right. You don't like single
Code right
quotes?
now.
You prefer double quotes? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like every language knows double quotes, and a single quoted string is just like you're asking for trouble when you jump between another language.
Got it. All right. 2, the scariest thing you've ever done for fun.
I don't know. I have like a slight fear of heights. So if you've ever been to Vegas, like they have that thing where you kind of like glide across on like this rope or whatever. I don't remember what it's called. I'm totally blanking right now.
Oh, are you talking about those where you're sliding down? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I totally forgot what that is.
Yeah.
So
I know
did
that's
that.
not like super dangerous, but I don't know. Irrational fear. Zip lining. Yes. Thank you, chat.
Yeah, zip lining. Yeah, it's dangerous if you fall.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, number 3. Is it GIF or is it GIF?
GIF.
All right, team GIF. Yeah, GIF, that's peanut butter for me.
Exactly.
Number 4. What's one VS Code extension you cannot live without?
I'm biased because we're a built-in, and we're also a built-in, so it's not really fair. The TypeScript one, but we're a built-in, so that's a cop-out. I work on it. Yeah. No, hold on. I got this. I guess I'm gonna say code spaces, or like the remote extension as a whole, right? It's a game changer.
Okay.
If you were ever not forced, Tmux was great, but like you can, it's a game changer. Remote, I think it's the best.
Nice. And the last question, I like this one. This was my favorite question. First guest if you had your own talk show. Don't go political on me.
No, I know.
Someone didn't want to answer that because they wanted to just mention their colleagues. I'm like, come on.
They are my colleagues, though, but like they're like also mentors in a lot of cases too.
We're talking about the whole wide world, all right?
I know, right? Yeah, everyone's my mentor. I gotta say it's somewhere between JT, Mads Torgerson, and Anders as well. But there's also others too, and it's tough.
Okay, I'll go with
yes,
the first.
I have too many of these people who have like had like great influences on me, and I think like they have great stories too. But anyway, that's just kind of like I don't know. I didn't give you a real answer on that one, so I feel bad. But
that's all right. It's like the peer pressure. You don't want people hating you. I saw that lightning round. Thanks for forgetting me. All right. Well, that was our lightning round. Oh man, yeah.
Pressure's on.
Good. Thanks so much, Daniel, for joining. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and show your information one more time. We have your for more information on TypeChat, you guys can go here, and if they want to reach out to you, they got your Twitter address right here. No typos, right? That's how it is, right?
You could have put one in, I wouldn't have noticed. Yeah, no typos. I just type checked it.
Perfect. And then there's your GitHub. So this was fun. Thanks a lot for joining and showing us the demo and entertaining our viewers, answering their questions. So that should be it for now. And everybody else, thanks for joining. We have our Twitter also on obviously we're on YouTube right now and you're watching us, so you know about that. But check us out on Twitter We have some nice shorts there that we're posting all the time. I'll bring that up. We're on @code at Twitter. And then, of course, sorry, I meant TikTok. There's TikTok right there. We don't have like videos on Twitter. Actually, we do have some, but not the ones I'm talking about. On
Right.
TikTok, we're at vscode. And then, of course, here on YouTube at Code. But I mentioned Twitter. Don't forget that. You can check us out there too. Cool. Thanks again for joining, everyone. And Daniel, it's been great. And I'll see everybody.
Thanks for hosting. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.